And hello, everyone. Welcome to the Women's Foundation of Minnesota Reproductive Freedom Fund Grant Information Session. I am LaCora Bradford Kesty. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Vice President of Community Impact here at the Women's Foundation. I also want to introduce a couple of my staff who you'll be hearing from today and who are also behind the scenes making this work possible. So first, you'll hear from Erica Idrovo Cuesta, who is our program officer. Then you'll hear from Hannah Elias, our Senior Manager, Systems and Database Administrator. And then behind the scenes, you'll hear from Tamika Davidson, our Community Impact Manager. So if you have questions about our evaluation work and our learning work, you'll hear from her. And then we have the amazing Maria Pauly, our accounting clerk, helping make sure that all the awards go out in a timely fashion. So why are we here today? Our purpose is to offer information about the Women's Foundation of Minnesota. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll also provide a deeper understanding of the Reproductive Freedom Fund itself. And then we're going to review all the application components, our online grant portal process, and the timeline, just to make sure everybody's tight, double tight. So our work, so here at the Women's Foundation, our mission is to be a statewide community foundation that ends systemic inequities and drive innovation for gender and racial justice. What does that look like, though? Our bold vision is that we create a world of equal opportunity where all women and gender expansive people across these intersecting identities and their families hold the power to create and lead safe and prosperous lives. We lead with these bold values of hope, generosity, courage, inclusion, and belonging. So in 2019, in the Women's Foundation, we expanded our mission to really include racial equity, capturing the centrality of the intersectional equity framework. And this framework guides all of our internal and external work at the foundation. This framework, we call it a power analysis to create the conditions so that all people have what they need to thrive. We want philanthropy and organizations seeking to advance and impact and equity to use some of this framework so that those intersectional equity pieces are put into practice so we can create equitable access to rights, opportunities, and resources. So how do we practice this? What does that look like in action? So when you look at this diagram, you see gender, race, place, and additional identities, and you have equity and justice at the center. So when we're talking about this, we need to look at gender and we need to ask ourselves, how are women, girls, men, boys, transgender, and gender expansive people differently or disproportionately affected, represented, or impacted? How and why? And what gender norms limit or impact that equity? We also need to think about it for race. So how are Black, Indigenous, Latine, Latinx, and Asian Pacific Islanders differently or disproportionately affected, represented, or impacted? How and why? And it's the same thing for place. Again, are rural, suburban, urban communities differently or disproportionately affected? And including those additional identities such as sovereignty, socioeconomic class, age, disability, immigration, affected, represented, or impacted. How and why? We know that this is a very academic framework. So we like to use this metaphor using a quote by Audre Lorde that says, there's no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives. And so we can't be taking this one size fits all approach to the work. We need to be thinking and using these intersectional lenses to talk about how we can continue to create solutions to the problems that exist today. And now I'll
Great.
pass it to Erica.
Awesome. Thank you. This is Erica, and now we'll go into holistic well-being and reproductive justice and our impact area. This work was introduced with our new strategic plan. We mentioned that our definition for health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. We use the Sister Song definition of reproductive justice, which includes the human right to maintain personal bodily autonomy, the right to have a child, the right to not have a child, and the right to parent children in a safe and sustainable community. And so we address reproductive justice in all of our Levers for Systems Change work. But within this area, impact area for investing, we are investing in reproductive health care because of research and listening we have done in the community. Access to reproductive health care is inequitable and affects overall well-being. That is why, in addition to investing in addressing reproductive health care, we are also contributing to $10,000 to staff wellness and development so that your important work can be sustained. So, for each of our four areas mentioned for reproductive justice, we created funding goals, and we will fund one organization in each of the four categories and fund one organization doing systems change and reproductive justice. And now I'll pass it to Lacora to talk about those funding category goals and examples.
Thank you, Erica. So let's jump into each of these funding categories. The first one being bodily autonomy. And this focus area is around youth health education and gender affirming care. And what I want folks to realize when applying for this work is that you'll see goals and then you'll see examples. We gave some examples to be helpful when people are thinking about how can we apply this work to some of the work that we're doing right now. This is not to be a way for us to say, this is what you need to be doing. This is just wanting to give folks some helpful examples. It's not the end all be all to what we're thinking about this, how this work could look like for each organization. So I'll walk through the goals and then I'll give you just a few of the examples. So for the first category, one, bodily autonomy, our goals are really multifaceted. It's one, develop comprehensive health education programs that include bodily autonomy. It's also enhancing access to inclusive, compassionate medical services, including our rural community clinics, providing that comprehensive gender-affirming healthcare. Another goal is to create holistic approaches to youth physical and mental health. And then to lastly, prioritize services for women and gender expansive individuals. Here are some examples of what that could look like, and in no particular order and in no preference. One is initiatives that reduce barriers to healthcare access. It's also potentially programs that educate and support youth with mental health challenges. And it can also look like creating comprehensive health education programs and support implementation of standardized health curriculum in Minnesota. The next category is the right to have a child. This is a focus area really around culturally responsive maternal and paternal health because we really know a lot of research on this work. And so the goals that we have here are one, to improve prenatal and postnatal care for Black, Indigenous, Asian, and Pacific Islanders in our Latina and rural communities. It's also to address maternal health inequities and to lastly provide that culturally sensitive, patient-centered care. Again, some examples, but not limited to this, is one, initiatives to reduce maternal mortality and morbidity rates. It also could be increasing resources for community-based maternal and paternal health education. And it could also look like programs supporting underserved and marginalized pregnant people. The next category is the right not to have a child. And this focus area is really about reproductive choice and access. The goals that we have here are to, one, support comprehensive reproductive health care. Secondly, to ensure access to abortion services. And then lastly, to provide accessible birth control options. Some of the examples of work, again, not limited to this, is one, organizations could offer confidential reproductive health services. Two, programs address a geographic and socioeconomic barrier to reproductive health care. And then lastly, education and counseling services related to those reproductive choices. The next category is the right to parent in safe and sustainable communities. This focus area is really about families and that child's well-being. Okay. And so the goals that we have here are to develop comprehensive parent education programs, also to create holistic approaches to improve the health, well-being, and safety of families. And then lastly, to increase family involvement in the lives of their children and in their child's schools. Some examples, again, not limited to this, are it could be education for families to navigate school systems. You could be doing organizations offering parenting and or co-parenting coaching and resources. And it could also look like culturally specific services and programs that support our Black, Indigenous, Asian Pacific Islander, and Latina families. And then lastly, our fifth category is about systems change for holistic well-being and reproductive justice. We at the Women's Foundation pride ourselves on being a systems change organization. And so we wanted this focus area to be about research, coalition building, movement organizing, advocacy, and narrative change. So what does that look like? So our goals in this is to work in collaboration with partners to dismantle systemic barriers to reproductive health care and gender affirming care, to protect abortion and contraception access and expand legislative rights that protect bodily autonomy. Another goal is to expand and protect policies that improve maternal health and keep our families together, y'all. And then lastly, involve narratives and public dialogue with the intersectional equity lens to build support for policies that improve the lives of all children and families. So those are the goals, and some examples, again, not limited to this, could be one, address systems that provide quality childcare and education. Two, convene community organizations, building grassroots leadership and work with impacted communities to advance policy. Or work towards non-discriminatory discriminatory healthcare practices. And now I'm going to pass it to Erica to really talk about our grant information in that timeline.
Yes, great. So, for the Reproductive Freedom Fund, the total grant size is $50,000. It is a 1-year investment, and $40,000 of the grant can go to general operating support of one of these funding categories that Lacora shared. And then the remaining $10,000 is restricted to staff wellness and development. So we usually do not have restrictions on funding from our grant programs. But as noted, this work does create burnout. And so, in order to help ensure that your organization can dedicate time and rest, we really encourage that this $10,000 be used for that. There's no specific examples to be used on this. It's really up to your organization's discretion how to best use those $10,000 for wellness. To be eligible for a grant at the Women's Foundation, you must be a legally incorporated entity and have 501(c)(3) status or 501(c)(4) status, or have a fiscal sponsor or be a tribal nation, tribal entity. Schools can also apply with programs operating in Minnesota. The work must be based in Minnesota. And then in addition, eligible organizations may also be current grantee partners from different grant programs or the current program. You can also be new to the foundation's work, and then you can also apply if you're an emerging organization. Ineligible, these are a few examples of ineligible activities for grants. Any project within a religious institution that doesn't align with our mission and values, any retroactive supported projects or activities, individual scholarships to attend college or university, capital campaigns, fundraising events, grants to individuals. These grants are specific for organizations. Any organization that may be deemed as discriminatory based on these examples. An organization that limits or opposes a woman's right to self-determination, any reduction of an operating deficit or to liquidate existing debt, such as sunsetting your organization, and not complying with IRS standards. So, um, And then lastly, partisan efforts and late or incomplete applications. These are a few examples of what all the grantee partners at the foundation share. And specific to this cohort for the Reproductive Freedom Fund, they all are addressing at least one of the funding priorities addressed in the categories. The work is benefiting Minnesota women, girls, and gender expansive people. The organization's programs are in alignment with our mission and our vision. The organization's financial condition is stable, and there is demonstration to work in partnership with other organizations. There's a commitment to using the gender and racial justice framework, using a multi-issue, multi-solution framework. The board and members and staff or volunteers are representative of the population served. And then they're inclusive with the values and perspectives and contributions of all the people that they strive to incorporate the needs and viewpoints of diverse communities in the design and implementation of programs. So, how are decisions made for grants? We have a process called participatory grant making. We have a group of community reviewers that make up the participatory grant making committee. This group has been onboarded and trained, and they represent the whole state from various ages and groups. And they will be using our research and our intersectional equity framework to help narrow down decisions. We have our research that we produce every 2 years that looks at areas of where women and girls are faring in areas such as leadership, economics, health, safety. And so from our research, we note that these are 8 communities that experience the greatest disparities and outcomes in our state. So those are Black, African, African American, immigrant, refugee, um, First People, Indigenous Native people, Asian American, Pacific Islander, Hispanic, Latinx, Latine, the LGBTQ plus communities, people living with a disability, and people living in greater Minnesota rural areas. So these are the 8 communities that we've consistently been addressing across our work. And then any organization that is led by one of these communities or serving majority of one of these communities will be prioritized in the decision-making process. And then we have the intersectional equity framework that also emphasizes on centering race and the needs and experiences of Black women, Indigenous women, and women of color. There is a grant rating sheet, and this rating sheet will ask for information about the org's mission and values, priority areas, and aligning values and capacity based on these 3 areas, such as project alignment, leadership, the organization's leadership and capacity, and intersectionality. We will share the rating sheet with you in the grant application packet. And this is more of a reference so your organization can note some of the things like the statements that will be used to rate the proposal. But this is an optional sheet used as part of the review process. So as I shared, the participatory committee goes through this. This is kind of the science of grant making, and then we have the art of grant making, which is the deliberation process. And that's really where the committee comes together and shares their feedback, what came up to them in the review process. And so we don't ask the committees to complete this and we don't track this information. It's more so of a guide to support the process. We also have a grant reporting requirement as part of the grant. This is a report that we are also launching as something new this year. And for those who will be awarded a grant, they will receive a template of a document of this grant report in advance. along with their grant award letter. The grant report will ask these areas, these sections about your organization. There's a blog post as well that goes into detail about each of these sections. But generally, the information gathered is to help support what your work, to own your outcomes, and really to support how this funding helped support your outcomes. And so this is a new approach for us, and we really welcome your feedback as well. So, any questions about the report, you can send it to our team at communityimpact@wfm.org, and we'd love to help understand more kind of what this reporting looks like for you and the experience you've had. Lastly, we have the application timeline. So we are live January 5th, and we'll go through January 22nd is the deadline at 5 p.m. That's when our workday ends. And our grant making day is February 11th with our committee. Following the committee meeting, there will be the grant approval and notifications the week of February 16th. And then, depending on how long it takes to receive all of the information for grant payment, that will happen right after. And a reminder, this grant period is 1 year, and there is a grant report that will be due 1 month after your grant period ends. So now we'll get into a preview of the application, which I'm very excited to share because it's a new application for our programs. We started this process earlier this year with participating in a working group for the Minnesota Council of Foundations in their Common Grant application, which aims to better support grant applicants to allow them to use the same information when applying to multiple funding, saving them the time to apply and hopefully making this application process easier. So we were part of that, and then we also hosted feedback sessions with members of our committee to help us better understand, their recommendations on these updates and help understand what will better support the experience of applying for funding at the foundation. So this work all resulted in creating this unified application for our grant programs and then our general operating support programs, applying the Minnesota Council's Foundation Common Language for an application. And these changes also started because we wanted to help understand our learning question at the foundation, which is what does it look like to build community power? And how will the foundation address the root causes that limit or diminish community power? So these actions are getting there, getting to access to money, making it more accessible and hopefully easy to get to through this application process. So as a community foundation, our funding is based on that. So we have this grant application for these programs that I'll share in a minute, but we are asking that this funding, this application be used only when funding is available for each of these programs. So the questions will remain changed, but the timeline will vary based on the availability of funding for grant making. So these are the following grant programs that we have that are specific to grant support, grant programming support. We have our Girls Best Sea Grant and our Girls Best Multi-Year Grant, which are currently unavailable. We hope to launch those in the new fiscal year, which starts in April. And then we have the Reproductive Freedom Fund grant that's currently live. And so a note to you all applying that please only answer the questions related to the Reproductive Freedom Grant in the application. Now I'll pass it back to LaCora to talk through the sections of the application.
Thank you, Erica. All right. So as Erica mentioned, we use the Minnesota Common Grant to help us create our grant application sections. We try to be really intentional about how we did that. So this is our version, the Women's Foundation's version of the Minnesota Common Grant. You'll see a lot of the same language, really like try to keep everything as seamless and as the same as their application. But we do have an additional question around our intersectional equity framework. So, which makes it a little different, a little more unique to the Women's Foundation, because that's really important to us. So in the application, you'll see our organizational information that we're asking for. It's nothing new for folks, the date of the application, full legal name of the org, address, website, who's your president and CEO, who's the contact person for that, are you a 501c3? If you are not, we do ask for fiscal sponsorship information. Please handle and give us your operating budget and then the dollar amount requested for 1 year in the application, and then any other resources for gathering the links for your socials and things like that. We have a couple of different narrative questions, and I'll walk through the questions that we're going to be asking. But here's just like a little bit around what we're going to be asking in the narrative. We're going to be asking about your org. We're going to be asking about the request for the summary. We'll ask about program goals, how about the impacts that you want to see towards those program goals. And again, that our intersectional equity framework question will come into play. And I'll talk about what that question is. We also want to make a note about using AI in grant writing. We just want to note that applicants may use AI tools to check your tone, your clarity, or your grammar. We welcome that. But we also want folks to be cautious if you have privacy concerns in uploading your original research or your original grant information into the program that AI tools may save as input. And so if you're using AI to brainstorm ideas, remember to fact check everything to prevent the use of fabricated resources and or data. So just a little warning sign for folks to just know about AI. Okay, so what questions are we going to be asking? Question 1 about your organization. We're asking, please share the most important information about your organization. Relevant information could include your mission statement, a brief organizational history, current programs, and your recent accomplishments and achievements. Some of the feedback that we received when creating our common application was that folks were like feeling a little bit that it wasn't able, a little contained, and so that they're not able to brag about themselves like how they would be able to in different applications. Well, we got something for you, okay? So Hannah will walk you through in the portal and show you, but we intentionally, and this is optional, I want folks to know that this is optional, but we heard the feedback, is that we will provide a space for people to upload links, videos, photos, things like that in your application that you want to help continue to tell the story about who you are as an institution and the work that your organization does, so you can talk about your accomplishments and your achievements. Again, optional. You do not have to do this, but for those folks who had, you were like, I spent a lot of coin on creating a video of impact about our organization, and we want to add that. Absolutely, we want to be able to watch it. So you'll see that when we get to those sections. Question number 2 is your request summary. We want to make sure, as Erica said, you'll see like Girls Best Seed and you'll see Girls Best Multi-Year. That is not what you're applying to. Make sure that you click the Reproductive Freedom Fund grant and that you apply to that. Next is the program goals. So if applying for a Reproductive Freedom Fund grant, please select the category that best fits your proposal. And again, I walked you through each of the categories. We will fund one organization in each category. So we're only going to have 5 grantee partners, okay? And we ask that you choose one primary funding opportunity. Don't submit an application for bodily autonomy and then submit something else for the right to parent and safe and sustainable communities. That means you're asking for 2 applications in 2 different funds. That's not ineligible. We want you to apply for one fund in each category. And we ask that you choose that one funding opportunity. And so this will ensure that when you will be reviewed with applicants, you're only going to be viewed in those funding categories. So all the folks applying for bodily autonomy will only be reviewed with bodily autonomy. Again, with the right to have a child, you're only going to be reviewed in that funding opportunity. Okay. And we want you to give us a brief description of your proposed work and how the requested funds from the foundation will be used to adapt and or sustain your work. And this is really important because folks sometimes think that we want to fund the newest, the brightest. No, but we want to give space for that. We also want to think about the current work that organizations are already doing because it's also important to sustain. So both innovation and that sustainability, we want to see both, and both are really important. And so we wanted to make sure that and or was really present when thinking about your description of the work. Next is about your impact. So briefly, please explain what success looks like overall for any of the goals stated above. How do you track impact? Or how do you know you're making progress? Every organization uses a different tool to measure what success looks like for them, for yourselves. Tell us what that success looks like. We love that folks are so creative with how they're capturing their data and things like that, or using, qualitative and quantitative together, to really pull out the keys to those stories and the work that you're doing. We want to see it all. We just ask that you just describe to us and let us know, again, how you're tracking and making progress to the goals that you're also trying to see. One small note is that we do have our own reporting, and we want you to review our reporting sections so that you are familiar about what we'll be asking for outcomes and impacts. So if you have any visuals, videos, links to share as a part of your answer, you're welcome to upload that as well. And lastly, this question 5 is around intersectional equity framework. We will link a video for this section. So I talked about it a little bit in the webinar. We'll have a link that we'll share with folks as well. But the question really is around, how do you practice this work? And how are you going to tend to some of these things? We recognize, again, this can be new to organizations and who may not be as familiar. So this is, again, for you to think about how you're doing this. You may be doing this and you're like, oh, we do this already. But you haven't used this language before. So we're trying to make sure that folks can really grasp what we're trying to get folks to think about. And the question is, in what ways does your organization's work tend to the intersections of gender, race, ethnicity, place, sovereignty, socioeconomic class, age, disability, sexual orientation, and or immigration status of the people that it serves? You may not be serving all of these different identities, but you should be serving at least a few. And so we want to know, how does your organization tend to some of those intersections of the people that you're serving? And the additional questions we have are optional for folks. If you are a current grantee partner, we're asking that you describe the outcomes you've achieved with your grant. If you're returning, right? And then we also have a section that's about feedback. This is, again, optional. Because this work is new and we're trying to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our potential current grantee partners, we want to know approximately how much time did your organization spend on completing this application. And then if you have any feedback for us about this application process, was it too clunky? Was it too wordy? Was something not accessible for you? We are only as best as our sharpest critique. We want the feedback from you all. It helps us keep us tight, double tight in this work. It helps us keep everything moving. And again, continuing to make sure that we have less burdens for folks who are applying to this work. So it's really important that you give us the feedback. It is also optional. You do not have to do it, but we want to make sure that the work that we're putting out is people can really feel it, vibe with it, and things like that. So just let us know. And now I'm going to pass it over to Erica to talk about our demographic survey.
Yeah, so this is another component of the application is the demographic survey. These responses help guide our decision-making process using that intersectional equity framework that asks about race, place, gender, and additional identities. So those are the ways the section of this demographic survey is formatted. We ask that you please answer these questions in numeric data, not percentages. And then for any question that your organization does not track, please just answer with a zero. We recognize that the privacy concerns is really important right now that could limit your response to these questions. So we appreciate that any information you can share will be valuable. And then these responses will be shared with our staff internally and with our participatory grant making committee. So we just want to note that as you're answering the questions that it is that you're consenting that this information can be shared with our team here. These responses as well related to like gender or race or ethnicity should total the number of people served by the programming supported with this grant. So rather than the total number of people served by your organization, which is a question that we ask, we would like that the other sections asked about demographics total up to the number that this program will be serving. This approach is also new at the foundation. We made some updates and revised many language to this survey. So we welcome your feedback on how we can improve the way we ask these questions and to be more inclusive. So there is a section in the application to add feedback if you'd like. And then lastly, we have our attachments section, which is required as part of a complete application. So one of the attachments that we will ask for your organization to submit is the financial review from most recently completed year. So this is showing actual income and expenses. This includes a balance sheet, a statement of activities, or functional expenses. This is required. We also ask to please upload a list of your current board members. That could include names, any demographic information would be great. And then if applicable, if your organization is using a fiscal sponsor, you are required to please upload a signed fiscal sponsorship agreement. We also have these optional sections that LaCour mentioned for supplemental materials, such as links, visuals, videos, etc. Any information you'd like to share is welcomed. So here we are with the application checklist. So to make sure you have a complete application, please make sure you check off each of these sections here. So a complete org information and narrative questions responses. This includes any additional ones if applicable. And then completes demographic survey, uploading your org's financial review, your organization's board members list, and then a fiscal sponsorship agreement if applicable. And now I'll pass it to Hannah to walk us through the grant portal access.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you both for this amazing review of our Reproductive Freedom Fund grant. As Erica said, I'm Hannah Elias, and I am the Senior Manager of Systems and Database Administration here at the Women's Foundation. So I am your go-to person for all questions related to accessing our portal and accessing our applications online. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about the portal and the application. You can see here, applications are accepted online at Foundation Cloud Community Portal. That is the portal we use for facilitating and managing all of our online applications. There are returning grant applicants, as Erica and LaCora mentioned, and if you are one of those, then you probably already have an account with the portal. However, if you are a new applicant to the foundation, you are going to want to create an account within our Foundation Cloud Community Portal in order to have access to that online application. We do have an approval process in place for portal accounts. So if you are a new applicant and you're creating an account, we do ask that you create an account as soon as possible, as I need to go into the backside of the portal and review and approve your account before you have full access to the portal and the application. So my recommendation is if you're a new applicant for the foundation and you're watching this information session right now, as soon as this is done, go ahead and get to our portal and create an account. And it will take me probably 1 to 2 business days to review and approve. But once I do, you will be in there and you will have access to the application. Once you are in the portal and you have access to the application, you'll see a few little notes around the application itself. A red asterisk next to a field indicates that the field is required. A blue question mark icon next to a field. Basically, if you click on that, a little pop-up window will appear, and that's going to give you some relevant context to the question that is being asked. And as I said, I am your go-to person for all questions about accessing the portal and accessing the application. So you can go ahead and email me if anything comes up. My email is right on this screen here. It is my first name, Hannah, at WFMN.org. Now, going back to our new applicants, so once you do get to that portal site, there will be a link at the bottom that says register as a first-time user. That's what you're going to click in order to create an application, or pardon me, create an account with the portal. So this screenshot here is what that account creation screen will look like. Like we said, please create an account days in advance. Do not create it the day before an application is due. We also recommend using Google Chrome or Firefox as a browser. We have received feedback from folks that other browsers like Safari, for example, there's more technical glitches usually with the portal. So if possible, please use Google Chrome or Firefox. When you're filling out your profile information at the top, you'll see there is a portal access question, and it would like you to select whether you're an individual applicant or a grant applicant. In this case, please select the grant applicant option as you are applying for a grant on behalf of an organization. You as an individual are not applying for this grant. And then once you've filled out all that personal information and the information about your organization, you can go ahead and select that I accept the terms and conditions box and then select register. Once you have registered, your portal account homepage will look like this. Like it's pretty bland and blank at the moment, and that is because I have not gone in and approved your new account yet. A great little note to make what if you are looking to see if you've been approved or not. You see at the very bottom there, it says use one of the portal menus to get started, and then in parentheses, none available yet. You won't have any menus available to you to access in the portal until your account is approved. So if you see that it says none available yet there, that means your account has yet to be approved. But like we say, it should take 1 to 2 business days. Once your account is approved, there are a couple different ways you can access the application based on those menus that will now be available to you to navigate the portal. So once your account is approved, you will see that there is a drop-down menu in the top right corner that says Grant Applicant. One way to go and find the application is to click on that menu and select from the drop-down menu Home. That will take you to the grant applicant homepage. You can see a screenshot of it here, and you'll see that there is a tile on the grant applicant homepage that says featured applications. So any applications that are live with the Women's Foundation will be featured in this tile. So you can select the grant application from that tile. It'll be like a hot pink kind of magenta link with the name of the grant application, and you can select it there. Or there is another option, another way to find that application, still using the grant applicant drop-down menu. You can use that drop-down menu and go to the option labeled Available Grant, take you to a different page, and that will list all of our live applications within the portal. And the WFM Grant for Programs application will be listed on there as well. in the hot pink link, and you can click on that. And now I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for a moment just to give you a sneak peek of our Reproductive Freedom Fund grant. Let's see here. And that's not the screen I want, but I will get there. Why? There we go. Okay. See, I was following along on the PowerPoint. So this is our WFM Grant for Application Programs application on our portal. So this is what it's going to look like. And this is our starting tab here, organization information. And I'm sharing this screen because I'm sharing this tab because as you scroll down and you see all of these fields where you can input data, you will see that there is a big blank space here. And this will populate with information to fill out if you say, yes, you are using a fiscal sponsor. Then all of these new fields will populate so you can fill in all of your fiscal sponsor information. If you select no, it will stay blank, but please keep scrolling because there is more information we'd like every applicant to fill out here at the bottom. You will be able to tell when a tab is finished because you'll see this beautiful little pink next button at the bottom, and you can just select next when you're all done with this tab, and it will take you immediately to the top of the next one. So now we're in our narrative questions portion of the application. The other thing I want to share here, as we were talking about earlier, is our attachments tab. So here is where you can upload all of your attachments that are both required and optional. And I am going to scroll down here to this fourth portion, which is the supplemental materials we've been talking about. So this is where you could upload attachments about the programming that you're applying to get funds for. This is also where you could drop some optional links. Like LaCora had mentioned earlier, if you have a link to a video about the program that you are requesting funds for, you could put it in a link here. So that's just a little sneak peek of what that will look like. I'll stop sharing my screen and I will hand it back to LaCora to wrap us up.
Ah, so wonderful. Again, this is just a little PSA. Our application deadline is Thursday, January 22nd at 5 p.m. Central Time. We want to make sure that folks again know that if you are a new organization to the foundation applying for the first time and you do not have web portal access, please, please, please go on and get registered before the 22nd. If you are registered on the 22nd, it is too late. If you have any questions, I'm sorry we can't take live questions here today, but we got something for you though. So if you have questions about the program or the grant proposal, you're going to talk to Erica, and her information in the email is here along with her phone number. If you would like a virtual meeting, because we got that for you, we have a link to schedule time with myself and or Erica so we can connect about making sure that your application you feel really strong about and confident about. And if you have any other additional questions, we're happy to meet with folks. And then if you have issues or concerns accessing the grant portal itself, please, please, please contact Hannah Elias, again, our Senior Manager for Systems and Database, and her email is listed here below. If you also have additional questions about like, who did we fund last year and what does that look like? And some of those questions, we did create a press release about our current reproductive freedom from grantee partners, and we'll attach that as well in the links for this webinar today. And with that, I just want to give you some gratitude. And I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for taking the time to review this webinar and taking the time to complete an application. We are just so grateful to have our community. We're stronger together. So thank you and have a great rest of your day.